In early January of 2022, Kalie and I started working on this video while in Kyiv to break down the different aspects of living as an expat there. We know that war has broken out and the situation has changed.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the people in Ukraine right now. We want to show this beautiful city all it has to offer because we had an amazing time there and truly believe in normal times it's a great place to be.
How much do you know about Ukraine and Kyiv specifically? Did you know that a lot of expats are moving there, both long-term and nomadic? I'm Josh.
And I'm Kaylee with Expats Everywhere. Did you know it's not called the Ukraine, but just Ukraine? And Kyiv has two spellings, but which one is the right one and why? Why the allure to Kyiv? We're going to break things down for you.
Ukraine is a large country with quite a history. There are a lot of ties to Russia, and saying "the" before Ukraine actually has ties to the Soviet Union, so this is antiquated. There are plenty of beautiful cities to visit around the country, but today we're going to focus on life in Kyiv, pronounced Kyiv, not Kiev, and spelled like this.
Kyiv is the capital and located in the northern central part of the country, right along this river. It's the largest city in the country, both by population and landmass. Kyiv is sprawling.
You can imagine that because it's so big and the capital, there's a diverse population here with a large amount of Russians, Jews, Belarusians, and Poles. However, the largest population living in Kyiv is still from the local Ukrainians. So while the city is becoming more and more popular with foreigners, it's still not what you would imagine as a big melting pot like other expat cities around Europe.
The language in Ukraine is quite interesting because of the history with Russia. They do have their own language of Ukrainian, but people also speak Russian, and these languages can even be interchangeable in the same sentence. Many young people do speak English as well, but this is something that is still up and coming.
One massive draw to moving to Kyiv is the reasonable cost of living and tax rate. We'll chat more about that later on. One big thing that you'll want to consider before moving to Kyiv is the weather.
I hope you like snow because the winters are filled with it. Expect freezing temperatures and snow between November and February. The good news is that it doesn't get miserably cold, but definitely stays in the 20s and 30s throughout the winter to ensure snow.
There's far less precipitation in the summer months. It can get into the 50s at night, but the days will reach into the 70s. Kyiv is described as a humid continental climate, which means it has 4 very distinct seasons with quite a range of temperatures.
Before moving to Kyiv, you will need to get a visa. If you're moving with a company, then they will assist you with your work permit and your visa. Most countries can enter Ukraine on a 90-day tourist visa, so if you want to enter and look for a job, then that's an option. Or if you want to be more nomadic, you can have your 90 days there.
So you're now in Kyiv. What is there to do? What are some cultural things that you should be aware of? Kyiv was the cultural center of the historic East Slavic civilization and has a rich history in Eastern Orthodoxy, the predominant religion of the country.
This means plenty of beautiful cathedrals and monasteries to visit. St. Sophia Cathedral is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The architecture of the different cathedrals and churches is quite impressive and great to explore. Females, just be sure you keep a scarf on you because it's respectful to cover your hair while you're there.
The city also has a variety of museums, monuments, green spaces, riverside activities, and more. So, not a shortage of things to do here. One fun thing to know is that they love their tea here, so be sure to pop into one of the many cafes and grab a cup of tea. If tea isn't your thing, there's also plenty of places for coffee.
Let's get to a few important costs to know about. The currency in Ukraine is called hryvnia, and to give you an idea, $1 US is about 30 hryvnia, but obviously this fluctuates. A one-bedroom apartment in a desirable part of the city will be around $650 and maybe further out of the city closer to $400.
For something bigger like a 3-bedroom apartment, expect to pay over $1,000 in a good area, but closer to $600 outside of the city center. Utilities vary depending on the time of year. Obviously, you'll be running your heat more in the winter, which they do heat very well in Kyiv, but average amounts to budget for would be around $100.
Local transportation is inexpensive. There is a metro which used to use a token system. You would insert plastic tokens into the turnstiles. They have now gone contactless and you have a reloadable card you can tap. A single ride is around 30 cents. There are also different types of buses, and then Uber is available.
A meal at an inexpensive restaurant is around $7, and a mid-scale restaurant for 2 people is around $30. There's a wide variety of restaurants and bars to try in Kyiv. You can find little hole-in-the-wall places and get some good authentic food, or you can go to a chain restaurant. Either way, it's very affordable. Their domestic beer is good and can be found for around $1, of course depending on where you are. You know what? Milk at a store is about the same price.
And speaking of food, while you are in Kyiv, there are 2 types of food you will see everywhere and you have to try. The first is borscht, which is a soup commonly made with a beet-based broth. Josh really likes it.
Yeah.
There are different variations of it, but you'll see it everywhere. The other one is vareniki, which I really like. These are stuffed dumplings. Check out the different markets for some good purchases for these foods or the ingredients if you want to try to make them yourself. If you do choose to go to a grocery store, then you can also find the ingredients here as well. But one thing to know about grocery stores is that you have to tag your own produce before you go to the cashier because the cashier doesn't do it for you.
For those of you with kids, the public education system is free, but it's common for expats to send their kids to an international school because of the language. There are a few international schools in the city and the prices will vary, but expect to pay around $7,000 per year per child. Universities are also free.
As an expat, you're entitled to free healthcare. It's a bit tricky though because you might come across doctors and nurses who don't speak English, and you can see that the quality might not be the same standards as Western countries. This is why a lot of expats opt for private as opposed to public, where it's less likely to have a language barrier. It's not uncommon to head to another European country for a major operation or for something big.
There are a variety of jobs available in Kyiv. It is the economic center of the country, so anything in finance will be there. You also have service industry jobs, engineering, utilities, and even teaching a language.
Remember that you will need a work permit to legally work in the country. Your employer should sponsor this, so speak to them about the details. There are a number of different types of work permits depending on your job.
Ukraine has a unique income tax system where it ranges somewhere between a flat tax rate and a progressive sliding scale system. So your taxes will depend on whether you are a resident or non-resident, and of course based on how much you will earn. Now Kalie and I spent some time in Kiev in the dead of winter. So after that experience, could we live there?
I would say because we were in the dead of winter, I would not like to live there. I'm not much of a snow person. It was beautiful. It was fun to play for a little bit, but I don't think I could actually expat Kyiv. What do you think?
100%. I think because of how cold it is, and yeah, mainly because of how cold it is, I don't think I would want to. However, I would really love to go back during the spring or summer and just experience it when there's more light and there's more ability to get out. So we have a 2-year-old daughter, and she was not very keen when it was, you know, in the negatives, both in Celsius and Fahrenheit. It was negative, so it was cold. So for those of you who know Celsius or Fahrenheit, it was negative, so it means cold.
Yeah, cold.
Canadians, just roll with me here. In terms of like infrastructure and the ability to do things, like there was everything there. The metro was good. It was really easy to get cars like Uber. Like all of that was good. Everything was like normal. People were cool. Actually in the region, so we traveled in Poland, Ukraine, and we've also been to Russia. In the region, we found Ukrainians to be kind of the nicest, most open, smiling, welcoming. Yeah.
I thought they were extremely nice, and I felt very safe walking around the city. They were very kind if we needed anything. And another thing that you mentioned with the infrastructure, the architecture is so beautiful. You have all different types of buildings, but I really love the cathedrals and the different domes, that typical look for this region. The architecture is just so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing to go like street by street and see the architecture change. That was stunning.
And Kyiv is just massive too, so there's just a lot to see, a lot to do. It's got the river you can look at, it has different parks, and so really it's a beautiful place to be. Probably, like we said, we wouldn't want to live there, but definitely visit again for sure.
And Ukrainian food?
Oh, so good.
Yeah. So Kalie, you already answered the question, would you expat that? And you said no. And I'm gonna answer the same way, no, because we're not cold weather people. But Ukraine, awesome, love Ukrainians, love people from Kyiv, and thank you guys. All right, so if you guys wanna see more of the things that we saw on our winter travels, click this playlist right here, and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get moving. Bye.